Welcome to this KuppingerCole webinar, The Role of Customer Identity and Access Management in Digital Transformation. This webinar is supported by WSO2. The speakers today, my name is Matthias Reinwarth. I'm Director of Practice IAM at KuppingerCole Analysts. And I will be joined by Prabhat Siravardena. He is Deputy Chief Technology Officer and Vice President of Security Architecture at WSO2. Very quickly, a short note about our online events. And we are holding a lot of them right now, and they're really nice and really successful. Next week, we will have the Cyber Access Summit, actually in German language. It will take place on the 17th and the 18th, and will be around cybersecurity, access management, consumer identity, and much more. And it will be followed the week after by our Cybernetics World, which will be in English language, and again for 2 days. And all of these events are, and we are really proud of that, and we really mean it. It's high-level content, it's world-class speakers, and that's true. It's online only, with lots of interaction on our platform, and it's for free. So join us there if you find the time. If you don't find the time, register anyway and watch the keynotes and the sessions that you're interested in afterwards. But contributing, taking place online is much nicer, of course. So that's it for the commercial break, and now for the housekeeping. First of all, audio control, all the participants are muted centrally, so we take care of that, so you don't have to do anything about the microphone settings. This webinar will be recorded, and the podcast, the recording, will be made available short term, and we will also provide the slide decks for download, so no need to take screenshots or notes for the content that is presented. Very important from my side is the Q&A section. We will have a questions and answers section as the third part of our agenda, and I really ask you to contribute your questions. You have this GoToWebinar panel on your screen. There is a question section. Just please feel free during the complete sessions that we are making, that Prabhat and me are doing, that you add your questions, and I will pick up on them in the Q&A session, which will be the last some 20 minutes of this session today. And then we can answer your questions and make sure that you get the information from Prabhat and or me when it comes to what you really want to take away from here today. So that's it for the housekeeping. Very quickly, now to the agenda. First of all, my part, I will talk about how CIAM, Consumer Identity and Access Management, helps to achieve the digital transformation. I will talk about some best practices in CIAM and some pitfalls to avoid. Then Prabhat will join me from WSO2, and he will talk about the 5 pillars in CIAM essential for your CIAM strategy. Think of your questions. And maturity models to determine the stage of growth. And then, as mentioned, the third part, 20 minutes of this hour will be the Q&A section where we will provide the answers to your questions. And that's the agenda. All parts will be around 20 minutes, at least that's the plan, a bit more or less. And that's it for the agenda. And as mentioned, I will start out, and as we say, this is about the digital transformation and what CIAM can do for this digital transformation. I just wanted to share a bit what we at KuppingerCole consider to be the digital transformation, and we think of it as these circles of change, and we are starting from inside out. The digital transformation, first of all, is really driven by external drivers. We are in a consistently changing world, and I don't want to mention COVID again and again, but this is a factor here. But many other things are changing as well. We have a changing competitive landscape. Our partnerships are changing. Our supply chains are changing. We have to have rapid innovation. We need to make sure that we are capable of providing this rapid innovation. On the other hand, we are in this hostile internet. We are under ever increasing attacks regulations are changing and are growing. We have connectivity more and more, and we are moving from a product world to a service world, from not buying things, but subscribing to services. On the other hand, we have changes in the organizational key capabilities. To make sure that we can meet these external drivers, we have to make sure that we are in our organization from our own mindsets are well adapting to these changes. And that means agility, that means organizational flexibility, multi-dimensional structures when it comes to organization, and the innovativeness which enables us to provide this rapid innovation, which is in the external drivers section. We have the key areas of change when it comes to how we do our daily work. We have smart manufacturing with changing supply chains, with really services and additional products being provided just when they're needed. We have lots of customer interaction, and that is where CIAM comes in. And we have, of course, the Internet of Things. And all these are just examples of, you could add more and more of these items to each of the individual circles of change here. And on top of that, there are the key enabling technologies that we need to take care of, and that we need to make sure that they are handled properly and are just in place to enable this digital transformation. And that is what all this webinar is about. And we see as the first item here, identity. And that is really an important thing. We need to understand all identities for all types of identities. So, but apart from that, we need to think of big data. We need to think of all this machine learning, cognitive and AI. We need, of course, to make sure that security and privacy are taken care of properly, but also such aspects as robotics. And that's not only these mechanical robots, it's also robotic process automation. More and more, it's really the blockchain, not only a hype 3 years ago, but really it is here to stay. And again, of course, the ubiquitous sensors that are key enabling technologies. And all this needs to be tied together, and we need to make sure that we enable digital transformation as a whole with all these aspects and many more. What does that mean for the organization when we look at identity and access management? So we have, of course, more users. When we have a larger, growing supply chain, we have more partners. We have more external parties. We need to make sure that we take care of our customers and consumers, CIAM, interested parties, systems, and devices. But we do not only have more users, we do provide more services. When we're moving to a services paradigm, we have a dynamic expansion of our own IT, and we use the cloud as a platform. And of course, many of us has moved to software as a service. Think of Zoom, think of Office 365 providing from the cloud, and many other services like that. When we have more services and more users, we have more data. We have employees, of course, employee data, but much more. We have context data. When you think of security, we need to understand our context, where we are, at what time of day we are doing things. We have customer data. Of course, we have an increasing amount of intellectual property, highly critical financial data, but also shared data, public data, open source data. And in the end, we have more responsibilities. And all this is an effect of the digital transformation and the foundation of digital transformation. We need to make sure that we accept our responsibilities and we perform on them. So the principle of least privilege, separation of functions, governance in general, compliance, duties of proof to make sure that we not only do things right, but that we have evidence that we do things right, that we have necessary certifications and more. And all this is a growing aspect. If we think of more users, we've mentioned the customers, the consumers, and we need to understand that the consumer identities, the customer identities are the key for the digital transformation. These are the individuals that we are doing business with, and we need to make sure that we fulfill on the promise towards them. So we are enabling business with them, and we maintain security when dealing with them. And CIAM has moved away from the IT guys team. So it's more at the marketing team, the advertising team, the sales strategies team, the app development team, etc. And that is true for, literally all industries and regions. And consumers, they are actually a bit spoiled. They are used to the experience that they get from, say, Amazon, say, Netflix, and they want to have a seamless, a consistent, a relevant experience from onboarding to their daily usage. So registration, authentication, and authorization are key aspects to look at, and I'm sure that Prabhat will talk about that as well. So CIAM is far more than just a security domain than that IAM was. So the traditional employee and enterprise IAM. This is true. It sounds like a truism, but it's true. It's an access enabler for customers and consumers. And we need to make sure that they get the access to all the resources that they need to have over time. And while they are doing that they are properly safeguarded and governed in our today's hybrid environments. And of course, CIAM is often especially about understanding monitoring behavior as the basis for security and business alike. So to identify unwanted behavior and to understand the behavior of a user while they're on the platform. So I won't read out all these aspects, but when you read a bit within the boxes while I'm talking, CIAM is about many of these aspects that we have right here. So it's really about understanding your customer from registration and serving them throughout the relationship. So from the registration, from the verification, from the onboarding to the daily usage of a platform, so that you can provide the access to services at the level of confidentiality that you require, that you give them access to services, provide authorization within the services, and really make sure that you do that at scale. So it's not only, even for larger organizations with say 50,000 or 70,000 or more than 100,000 employees, we are talking about multi-million identities in a customer identity and access management. And that is a challenge to do that right. And I said I want to talk about the common pitfalls and I want to talk about best practices. So let's do a reality check. Where is CIAM when it's not really done properly? And we often see that in real life. It is often not a strategic approach. It's a module within a marketing campaign. It's something that somebody who was the first who needed it, subscribe to a service with a checkbook approach just to solve an immediate problem. And it's often operated and purchased decentrally. So it's closer to CRM than to IAM. Although these are technically similar, not the same technologies, that it's closer to the CRM system and the people who run the CRM system. And if it's really done wrong, we sometimes even have more than one CIAM, so one CIAM for each solution. So different purposes, different lines of business, more than one CIAM. And if you are a customer of such an organization, that is really something that you don't want. In general, reality check often means that we have missed strategic opportunities, and this is the cause of many issues downstream. And the main issue is yet another silo. And yet another silo, of course, is something that we need to avoid, and that is most probably one of the most important pitfalls that are the most important mistakes that you can make here if you are treating your CIAM as a not well integrated silo, well integrated within your security architecture, your marketing architecture, but also your IAM architecture, then you're just not fulfilling on the promise of a CIAM. You have limited benefit, you're investing lots of money and you don't get the full ROI. You might end up in potential compliance issues if you have just one more system processing personally identifiable information. then this is an issue because you have to track that. And if it's just subscribed with this checkbook approach, how can you make sure, or do you make sure, whether it's run in the right legal area, regional area, so that you are, for example, compliant to GDPR. You have potential governance issues. Can you be sure that this customer that you're dealing with is not also an employee, which might be a segregation of duties issue? And in the end, I've mentioned the more than one CIAM issue. That, of course, immediately leads to a user experience issue when it's not done properly. So you end up with more than one account for customers and different solutions. And that is really something that I, as a customer, would really highly question when my partners, my providers would hand over such a solution to me. So that would be one of the major pitfalls, the things that can go wrong when doing IAM, CIAM here. So I already come to my final slide, but this is the best practices, the recommendation slide. And for all of these items that I mentioned here, of course, if you turn them around, they immediately also show the pitfalls if it's not done adequately. So what we really recommend as the key sentence for best practices when it comes to consumer identity, and I think Prabhat will elaborate on that as well, it's really thinking identity from a consumer's viewpoint, because they who are in the driver's seat. So seamless access to services from every device, integrate payment, do it securely, and preserving privacy. So 6 recommendations. First of all, think of identity and think of freedom of identity. Think of freedom of the identity to use for the individual consumer/customer. So that they can choose which identity to use in which context, a social one, a registered one, and you make sure that you control all of the identities and correlate them and leave them in control with bring their own identity. They do this from the devices that they want to use, and they will use the device they have at hand, so it should work from literally every device seamlessly. And when they switch to a new device, just the new iPhones have come out recently, they will switch to a new device. Make sure that they can use your services from their new device, and that as simple and as easily as possible, and privacy preserving and maintaining adequate security. All easy and simple, but secure. And things are changing. Also, consumers are thinking more and more of their rights as a customer, as a consumer. It's not only regulations, but increasingly the user demanding for privacy and for control of data, for the right to delete the data. On the other hand, more and more payment and commerce is coming into play. And that is with this working from home and staying at home scenario. It's not only about access, it's about having easy access also to paid services, integration with payment and commerce. That needs to be seamless, but managed, secure, and controlled, maybe with some step-up authentication and authorization, just to make sure that payment is a bit more protected, but and still with a great user experience. When you enter such a service, you want not to be bothered with cumbersome registration and KYC or your customer processes. Make sure that this is really seamless, really something that works immediately, an iterative process of collecting data over time, not filling in large forms at the beginning, because then I would leave for sure. And finally, an aspect that we really think is gaining more and more importance, it's really this work-life convergence. Of course, work is part of life, but life and private life is more and more converging with the work life. So there is not really often a real distinguishing factor between the identities that you're using for personal life purposes and for work life purposes. So many of these identities are used in parallel for different purposes, and you need, from a consumer identity and access management point of view, make sure that you understand these different types of identities and that you make sure that you correlate them, understand them as a whole, and that gives you the full picture. And that is really my best practices recommendation as my final slide for thinking from a consumer's viewpoint, really fulfilling their needs, making sure that that is well implemented. So that is my final slide, as I said. So I would shortly hand over to Prabhat, but before I do that, I want to mention again the questions and answers section. So if you have any questions regarding my part, and if you have any questions regarding the part that Prabhat will now present, please make sure that you add your questions into the questions panel on your screen so that we can pick up on that in the third section. And with that, I would like to hand over to Prabhat for his part, and I'm looking really forward to him talking about that. Prabhat, are you there?
Yeah, thanks, Matthias. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining in. Hope you are doing great and most importantly, staying safe. I'm Prabhat Sirivardhana and I've been with WSO2 for the last 13 years and mostly worked on building the WSO2 identity server. WSO2 is a company that produces a set of open source products in the integration and IAM domains. The company was founded in 2005 and we have offices in the US, UK, Brazil, Australia, Mexico, Italy, and Sri Lanka. I'm based out of the Mountain View US office. WSO2's vision in IAM is to build an API-driven, developer-focused IAM product to address CIAM use cases. We believe in moving forward every service you develop, every API you design, every device you use, every person you interact with will have some sort of a managed identity. In building a CIAM solution, you need to integrate with all these components, or in other words, you can't merely operate in silos. That we see as a need for a developer-focused IAM product to build a CIAM solution. Identity Server is an open source IAM product released under Apache 2.0. As some of you may already know, Apache 2.0 is the most business-friendly open source license. At the moment, we have 200 plus production customers and the paid production customers and 500 plus educational institutes using Identity Server globally. That's in addition to 1,000 plus completely open source deployments with no WSO2 subscriptions. I would say 90% of Identity Server deployments are customer facing, addressing CIAM use cases across multiple verticals, including financial, government, healthcare, education, automobile, retail, and many others. We have a very active Slack community. So if you have any questions related to the product, we invite you to join our Slack channel. The entire Identity Server development team is on it to help you. With that little background with respect to the product, I believe we qualify as a well-established vendor in the IAM domain to talk about CIAM. The major goal of CIAM is to drive the revenue growth by leveraging identity data to acquire and retain customers. It will build an identity-centric ecosystem to nurture an anonymous website visitor into a well-known loyal customer. We have come across multiple phases in the past, and today at the age of customer, identity has become the glue for all contextual marketing. In doing that, in our journey towards CIAM, we face multiple challenges. If you take a typical workflow, many follow to onboard a customer. We start with an anonymous website visitor, then nurture this anonymous website visitor to a lead, and then to a qualified lead, and finally to a customer. There can be multiple variations of this flow, and we could be using multiple channels to onboard customers. When we have multiple channels, multiple points of connections and data sources, that leads us into a bigger problem. Data related to the anonymous users may reside under marketing data sources. Data with respect to leads and sales might be under CRM data sources, and the identity data of customers could be under the IAM system. With this approach, we'll end up having siloed data sources, and those siloed data sources may not know how to talk to each other. 52% of marketing leaders responsible for data analytics, they believe data integration and data management are the most time-consuming activities. And also, over 1/3 of marketers say the inability to integrate data is the biggest obstruction to the success of the analytics team. These are real challenge which we need to find a solution to. Then protecting consumer data at large scale. Unlike in workforce IAM, in a typical CIAM system, we work with millions of users. So we need to worry about how we securely store the PII data of these users and preserve privacy. This is another challenging area we need to worry about. What your customers and your partners experience is the tip of the iceberg. So that's the experience your CIAM solution is building. Underneath, to build the right level of user experience, you need to worry about these 5 pillars. Scalability is one key requirement in any CIAM system. Unlike in workforce IAM, in CIAM, the difference between the average load and the peak load is considerable. So in a traditional way, if you provision your hardware to address the peak load, you'll end up wasting a lot of resources. In CIAM, just having the ability to address scalability needs is not enough. Your CIAM system should know how to auto scale up and down based on the demand. Then the security. If you handle any customer data, the security should be one of the top most priorities. You would need to worry about how your CIAM system stores and processes PII data, how it talks to external systems, and also how the communications happen among the components of the CIAM system itself. Also the customers, they do expect some control around how you collect, store, manage, and share their personal data. Any misuse of customer data, whether deliberate or not, can significantly damage the brand equity. Usability is another key aspect. So there are 3 types of users who need access to your CIAM system: your customers, some of your employees, and the partners. The customers demand low friction access both during the registration flow and the login flow. Then some of your employees, like the help desk administrators or the CXOs. CXOs specifically would expect your CIAM system to build dashboards to give a better business oversight. Then comes the extensibility. Both the extensibility and the developer focus go hand in hand. Organizations need to continuously improve the level of consumer engagement and adapt to the changes in technology, business models, competition, regulation, and then the customer preferences. To address that, you need an agile, event-driven CIAM platform that can flex to meet both new business opportunities and new challenges. So your CIAM system, CIAM solution should be able to address common CIAM needs out of the box, while its architecture should permit extending the platform to address unique business requirements. That's why we see CIAM is a solution you build, not just a single product that you buy. Then the APIs and integration. 60% of digital transformation projects start with integration. As I mentioned before, CIAM is not just a product, it's a solution we build. When we build the CIAM solution, we need to integrate with multiple components. These components can be an identity provider, a CRM system, a marketing platform, an e-commerce platform, a CMS, and so on. So we need to worry about how we build an integrated CIAM solution. The key enabler for integration is the APIs, and all the components in your CIAM infrastructure should expose their respective functionalities via APIs. They can be in-house or outside of your local infrastructure. When you expose APIs and consume APIs, we need to worry about security. We need to worry about securing APIs at the edge and also securing the communications among the components in your CIAM system. Over the time, we have spoken to hundreds of customers and probably thousands of leads. From all those conversations, what we have learned is different customers are at different levels of maturity in building a CIAM solution. Some even don't know they are doing CIA. Most businesses, they do start with level 0 or at non-existent maturity level. At this level, you don't worry about tracking any customer interactions. Probably you don't have an online portal, and probably you don't do any online sales. In case you have an online portal, you may use it only to share your product and contact information and would not expect any dynamic customer interactions. Probably you may use systems like Viber, WhatsApp, or a phone line to accept orders, but you don't worry about tracking who places which order. Many restaurants, taxi services, retail stores, and family businesses follow this model at the start. When you walk into a restaurant, no one knows about you. Even if the same restaurant, you are going back again and again. Each time you need to pick where you want to be seated and what you want for the meal. Same applies for many taxi services, probably other than Uber and Lyft. Whenever you order taxi, you need to share the address you need to go. You can't just say drop me home or take me to the office. At level 1 or the managed identity phase, you only worry about onboarding your customers to the system and digitally manage their identities. Even under level 1, the emphasis different companies put on how they want to manage their customer identities varies. One may only worry about onboarding customers via an online portal and then let them authenticate to the system via username and password. Another company would worry about integrating with social IDPs for registration, enabling strong authentication options with adaptive authentication, integrate with risk engines, do identity analytics, and so on. What you do in this phase is distribute across a broader spectrum, but still you only worry about managing identities. No CRM system in place, no custom preference management system in place. I would say most of the companies who are working towards a digital strategy are in this phase, or at least start with this phase. Then again, the question is how long you want to be in this phase. We work with many companies who've been in this phase for years, and some even for more than a decade. What we have seen is the more you are in this phase, you start building disconnected identity silos. You may use federation between applications and identity providers, but still will end up having multiple federation silos, probably by different departments. Each department may have its own identity store and identity provider, which will result in duplication of identity information across the company. Level 2 is one step forward from the managed identity phase. Here you have an identity management system in place, and you also worry about having a CRM system, a marketing platform, an e-commerce platform, a CMS, data management platform, and many more to know about your customer better. One deficiency we see in the companies in this phase is, even though you collect customer data at different contact points, the data sources are disconnected and does not help in building a unified profile for a given customer. When you want to generate a report across multiple data sources, that would require high labor intensive process with human involvement. And even in some cases, you may fail to find a correlation among different data sources. This is, in fact, the phase we see a company would start worrying about a CIAM system. Once you are in this phase, you'll understand the benefits in building a unified view of a customer, and at the same time, you'll start realizing the deficiencies in your current system that prevent you from getting there. The level 3 is the connected phase. This is the phase where you start integrating your IAM system with your CRM system, marketing platform, e-commerce platform, data management platform, and others. This helps in building a unified view of your customer. So you can see how long it took to nurture an anonymous lead to a loyal customer. Progressive profiling is one of the key elements of this phase. When you onboard a customer, you only request a minimal set of information. But as he or she starts using the system will start learning more. The system can learn from the user's behavior or else directly ask from the user for inputs. Irrespective of how the system learns about the user, it will feed those data into the IAM system using an API. This helps the IAM system to make much informed decisions with respect to the user's action, as well as share a unified profile of the user among all the connected applications. Another advantage you see in integrating IAM with other business platforms is you can track the customer across multiple platforms or multiple devices. Most of the marketing platforms track users by cookies. So when you use cookies, you can't track the user across multiple devices. But having your marketing platform integrated with the IAM system helps you identify user interactions across devices. This is one reason I would say arguably why Google introduced Gmail. You are always logged into a Gmail account and indirectly to the browser. So Google can correlate your search patterns with your identity, and they can do that across all the devices. Then Apple ID probably introduced for the same reason. When you use Apple ID, Apple knows which apps you use from your mobile device as well as outside of your mobile device. To build a CIAM solution in this phase, you would need more than an identity provider. You need to worry about integrating systems, exposing data as APIs, managing those APIs, and many more. This is why we see many customers in this phase work with system integrators to build a CIAM solution if they don't have a strong development team in-house. Finally, the level 4 or the optimized phase. Omnichannel access is one key feature we see in the companies who operate at this level. In an omnichannel environment, the customers interact with the business via multiple channels, but will still get a seamless, continuous user experience. If you're an Amazon customer, you can place an order via its website, a mobile app, Alexa, or even via Kindle. When Amazon announced Amazon Books a few years back, their intention was to bring the same digital experience you have on Amazon.com to the physical world. If you visit an Amazon bookstore, you will see the book reviews, ratings, and many other digital-only features there. Then Amazon Go. When you enter into the Amazon Go store, the system seamlessly authenticates you via the Amazon Go mobile app. Then it uses sensors to track items as we put them into the cart or return them to the shelf, and finally your Amazon account gets automatically charged with no cashier involved. So this is the next level of omnichannel experience Amazon is building, and identity is key in doing that. Then the CXO dashboards is another key feature we see in this phase. The CXO dashboards get updated in near real time with the data with respect to the current status of the business and also predictions derived from integrating with machine learning systems. Also, in this phase, machine learning and behavior analytics are being used to suggest how you can design better, more effective UX A/B testing for user registration and login flows. We only see a small percentage of companies at this optimized level. This is a summary of the maturity model we discussed. Finally, the takeaways. The goal of CIAM is to drive the revenue growth by leveraging identity data to acquire and retain customers. Organizations need to continuously improve the level of consumer engagement and adapt to the changes in technology, business models, competition, regulations, and customer preferences. An agile, event-driven CIAM platform can flex to meet both new business opportunities and new challenges. A CIAM system should be able to address common CIAM needs out of the box, while its architecture should permit extending the platform to address unique business requirements. WSO's vision in IAM is to build an API-driven, developer-focused IAM product to address CIAM use cases.
Yeah, thank you very much, Prabhat. Thank you for this presentation. That was really interesting. And before we join the questions and answer section of this webinar, my final call for questions. So if you have some more questions to add to the panel, please add them right now so that we can use them, so that I can ask Prabhat or maybe answer them myself. So final call for questions. And it's great that we have quite a great set of questions already there to start out with. So without further ado, we start out with the first question from our audience. So the first question that I received very quickly while talking is the question that I was using, and I think Prabhat did this as well: customer and consumer more or less like synonyms. They are not synonyms. How do they differ? Maybe I just start out, and then maybe Prabhat, you want to add to it. So I use them as synonyms because sometimes the dividing line is difficult to draw. You're not always doing real business with the identities that you are handling in such a systems. Sometimes you want to, sometimes it's not even intended. So the distinction between the both really depends on the individual use case. So a consumer can be somebody just passing by and trying to find some information, and then turns into a customer and really doing business, doing purchases, buying services, subscribing to something. But sometimes this is not even wanted. Think of a football club selling tickets. They might do that via the platform. Maybe they are just doing some social interaction with their fans, and they do a consumer management for that purpose. But Prabhat, do you have additional ideas to add when it comes to distinguishing between customer and consumer?
Yes. So I agree with what you mentioned. But if I give you like some concrete example, let's say we are building a digital aviation platform. So we are the owner of this platform, and our customers would be different airlines, like so American Airlines, Etihad, Emirates, different airlines. So those are the direct customers of us. So we can call consumers as the people who use those services, like end consumers who's at the edge, we should buy direct services from our customers. So that's a differentiator we should see.
Okay, great. An additional question that came in while I was talking, but I think you Prabhat can also add to that as well. I've mentioned as my final point that we should think of integrating the work and the private life identity and to get to a common picture here. And the question is here, if I was suggesting that they should merge, or how a system can establish that context. And there's a bracket which is important to me as well. I much prefer to separate work and real life myself. I do as well, but nevertheless, sometimes it might be required to make that joint approach to understand that this Kuppinger Kohl address is also this private Matthias address. For example, I've mentioned the use case. How do I understand that the customer is also an employee? That is an interesting thing. And with working from home right now, I think the lines are really blurring. What are your thoughts here, Prabhat?
Yeah, I totally agree. So I would say you should not mix up them. As a user or also as a company who are implementing IAM system, you should not mix up the IAM system you have for the workforce IAM and IAM system you have for CIAM. So that we see with our customers too. Like some of our customers, they use different IAM product for the workforce IAM, and for the employee, the customer IAM, CIAM, they use WSO2. And as a person too, I would not like encourage you to use like identity attributes you inherit from your workplace for your personal interaction. So you should not use your company email to register for personal events or share with your personal contacts, because ultimately, like, there's a legal ownership of your company account to your company, right? Workforce IAM, workforce email account to your company. So whenever like you leave the company, you lost everything. And also, company may have legally legally allowed to go through all your personal chats that you do with your company account and go through emails. So company is eligible to go through that. But if you use that for your private communications, then your private data is also exposed to your company. So we see some people using your company email address for the account recovery email. So that's also not a good practice. So when you leave the company, you don't have any access to those like identity information.
Yeah, great thoughts. Thank you. We have a number of questions around the onboarding process for consumers/customers. First question here in that context is, what do you make of social logins? Isn't that a weak foundation for CIAM? What would be your answer, Prabhat, when it comes to onboarding users based on a social login?
Yeah, so that will definitely reduce the friction. You can easily register you to a system using your social account, but then again, we need to be careful. We should not just rely on one social ID. You should not just rely on Facebook, Twitter, or LinkedIn. You should support like multiple options for the users to register. Then again, you should also have a local account for them. Okay, you use your social account to bring in your user attributes. You don't need to type all your data in our site. You can bring in them from your social IDP, but you need to create a local credentials too. That is essential in my view. In the current context of the world, we have seen in many countries Facebook being banned. So I experienced this firsthand in Sri Lanka. So the Facebook was banned for more than, I guess, 2 weeks in Sri Lanka. So that had a huge impact on our e-commerce business, which were based on Facebook login. So when your Facebook is banned, if your business relies on Facebook login, your customers cannot log into your account. So you need to take care of, like, you need to think about those lines too when you enable social registration. Of course, you can have it, but think about having a backup plan too.
Right. So another question closely related. So is the value in the management layer of CIAM or in ensuring digital identities are authentic and secure and private? What is, from your experience and from your point of view, the most important part?
Yeah, so most important part is build the right level of user experience. So that's the most challenging part too. So you need to find a right balance between the user experience and security. So Facebook is like, registration with Facebook is one example. Like, you need to give the opportunity for your customers to sign up with Facebook. But then again, you should be prepared for an event in case like this social IDPs got banned. Right? So finding the balance is the key thing in building a CIAM solution. Then again, apart from the business requirements, you also need to think about those 5 pillars of CIAM I discussed in the webinar. those are the key things that will help to differentiate you from others. So if your CIAM solution cannot scale, then that will have a huge impact on your business. So what we see is we work with one of the financial institutes in Latin America. So their average load is around 1,000 login requests per minute, right? But there are 2 days in a month that the peak load goes up to 300,000 logins per minute. So that's a huge variation. So if your CIAM system is not scalable or cannot auto scale, then you are having a bottleneck. So you also need to think about the tip of the iceberg, as well as the factors that help you to build that tip of the iceberg.
Right, I would fully agree. One more almost philosophical question: Is CIAM missing a universal identity proofing standard? Therefore, is this something that you would consider to be valuable, as a universal identity proofing standard? Really knowing who's behind that customer identity?
Yeah. So it depends once again based on the services you provide. So we see in financial institutes, banks, when they deploy CIAM solutions, they worry about the identity proofing. But once again, I need to agree, but I haven't seen like that has come across as a real need for most of our customers to like work with they don't feel the lack of a universal standard. But yes, I think as we move on, when there are many companies get that need, we would need to have a universal identity proofing standard. Yeah. So right now, it depends on like different vendors. So you get a vendor lock-in as well.
Right, and I think there is also a real sense in having consumer identities that are weak, that are not fully proved.
Yeah.
That they are just for, say, doing some polls or just interaction on the platform. These should not necessarily be required to have a stable proof and to have a connection between a real life identity. A question around your products. When you build and establish a CIAM with a WSO2 product, what is required? Do you need only the identity server as a product, or are there other products required, like, I don't know, ESB or microservices?
Yeah, so it depends on like where you are in that CIAM maturity model. So most people, they start with having identity federation and single sign-on. For that, you can just use identity server. But when you want to integrate with multiple systems, then you need to build like a integration story. For that, you need do the API management. You need the integration where you can use WSO2 Enterprise Integrator and WSO2 API Manager. And I see that's an advantage we have. Like we have all the ingredients under WSO2 that can help you to build like integration CIAM story. So we are right now planning to go to cloud. So probably Q1 next year you will hear more about it. So in the cloud, we are building this CIAM the integrated story with all our WSO2 products.
Right. Okay, we have really great questions today. So another one, this time about consent management and requesting consent. From your experience and also from my research view, what is a good approach in requesting consent? Should it be a step-by-step approach for giving consent whenever it is required for individual attributes or for individual usages? Or is it better to start with a blanket of approval of end user privacy and policies and all that in the beginning? What are your best practices here, Prabhat?
Yeah, I think it should be on demand as and when you need. You should not gather any consent or any identity attributes unless you really don't need them. So you should only take them as and when you need it. And then again, what we have seen is when you gather consent and when you work in a federation use case, there are two parts in it. One is the consent management at the identity provider side. From the identity provider side, when you log into another application through the identity provider, the only consent required from the identity provider is Is it okay to share these attributes with that particular application? Then when the customer goes to the application needs to get another level of consent. Okay, you give consent to the IDP to share your email address with that particular application, but then application has its local consent management. You would need to ask, is it okay to use this email address to send you a newsletter? So that's a different level. What you can do is, so that's something we are planning at WSO2 this level of two levels of handling consent is not a good user experience. So what you can do is the IDP itself can manage consent both at the IDP side and also at the third-party applications. So that's something we are working on.
Okay, great, thank you. And I would fully agree. It's really it feels a bit fishy if you really have to give consent for many attributes and many use cases when you're just registering with the website and you don't even know whether this will be relevant at all, or if you're quitting afterwards, because and many will just jump off and leave at that point in time because they just don't want to. At least I would do. Okay, a great question again. It is a bit a side note because we've been talking about CIAM right now, but when it comes to B2B IAM solutions, is this a completely different game, or is this something that trends towards the CIAM space as well? What are your experiences here? Is there similarities?
Yeah, so when you say CIAM, it covers both B2C and B2B too. So the example I gave you, right? So if you are building a digital aviation platform, your customers are the airlines, right? So now the airlines they have their own customers too, right? And they also need to interact with other businesses. For example, for airline, there can be other service providers like who are doing catering stuff, maintenance. So you need to share some of the resources from the airline with those vendors too. So there are B2B interactions. So we have many use cases. The companies using our identity server to build platforms like that. So B2B interaction is also becoming an essential part in CIAM.
Okay, we have one participant today who really is planning for a large-scale deployment, and he asks if there is a affordable and scalable platform that can handle up to 180 million users. Not necessarily a question to WSO2, but maybe you can elaborate on that as well. I assume there's the need for that, and can you scale up your platform like this? And do you know of platforms who are capable of doing so?
Yes, yeah. So I think I know, like, so there are many. So 180 million is not a huge number when it comes to CIAM. So you see in CIAM the numbers are in like 100 millions, 10 millions range. So we have at WSO2, we have like large scale deployments about like Hilton, for example. There are 106 million users using our platform. So the way we have designed our platform is we don't completely rely on the number of users in the system. But what we worry about is number of concurrent requests we get to the system. And based on that, you can decide how you want to scale the product. So mostly, that's what I mentioned, scalability is a key requirement. You need to think about when you are evaluating a CIAM product. So when you get a request, your CIAM solution should be able to auto scale. So rather than have provisioning your product to address a peak load, you can adjust your platform to auto scale based on the demand. So I don't think that's any issue. So WSO2 support that, and I don't think any like other key IAM vendors they do support that too. As a CIAM platform, you must support that size of like customers.
Right. So unfortunately, we are reaching the top of the hour. We have quite some list of questions still left, so we will follow up on that afterwards, and we'll get in touch with that. And both WSO2 and Housekeeping and Co will do that so that we can answer that questions. So thank you very much, you Prabhat, for providing this deep insight into your work, into your product and your experiences. Thank you for the great questions, and to the audience for participating and for contributing their questions. And there's still more to answer here. Prabhat, any final recommendations, any final remarks you want to make?
Yeah, I think so. You need to so when you pick a CIAM solution, you also need to think about your business requirements, as well as think about the other 5 pillars I mentioned. So those would be the critical ones as we move forward. Like whenever your business requirements change, your CIAM platform should be able to adjust, accommodate those changes. If you don't think about those 5 pillars, you will get stuck, and that will be a costly operation to add new changes. So think about those stuff too.
Great. Yeah, thank you very much again, Prabhat. If there are any more questions, please get in touch with Prabhat and or me. The contact information is on the site where you registered for this webinar. That's it for today. Thank you again, Prabhat, for being part of this webinar. I'm looking forward to welcoming all of you for a future edition of one of our webinars. And that's it for today. Thank you, Prabhat. Goodbye.
Thanks, Matthias. Bye.